I never imagined that the happiest day of my life would begin with a whisper I wasn't meant to hear. The church was glowing with soft golden light, filled with the scent of lilies, and the quiet hum of guests settling into their seats. I stood behind the half-closed door, smoothing the lace of my wedding dress, breathing slowly, reminding myself that this was my second chance at love, at peace, at companionship. That's when the voices came, sharp, amused, familiar, and they sliced through the stillness like broken glass. "Look at him," my son snickered. "Mom's marrying an old man. A fossil." His wife laughed under her breath. "He probably needs help climbing the steps." God, this whole thing is embarrassing. Imagine our friends seeing this. Her husband looks older than her father. Their voices faded, but my heart didn't stop pounding. My fingers curled around the doorknob, my breath caught in my throat. I wasn't supposed to hear any of that. My son, my own son, with the same hands I had held when he was a child, hands I had wiped tears from, mocking the man I loved. My future husband. The man who had shown me a gentle, patient love I had never known. I felt my throat tighten, my eyes burn, and a cold line of fear slithered down my spine. If this was their attitude before the ceremony, what would they do during it? I swallowed hard, forcing myself not to crumble. This wedding wasn't about them. This moment was mine. And yet, their words echoed inside me like a curse I couldn't shake. Before I stepped out, I took a shaky breath and whispered the same prayer I'd whispered every morning since I met Daniel. Let them see the man he is, not the number written in his bones. Like this video and subscribe to my channel for more stories like this. The music began softly, the first notes of a piano drifting through the church. My heart trembled, but I stepped forward, letting the doors open wide. All eyes lifted toward me. Faces softened. A few smiles bloomed. But my son and his wife sat stiffly in the second row, their expressions unreadable, their eyes darting past me as if embarrassed to look directly at me. Then my gaze landed on Daniel. He stood at the altar, tall, composed, and dressed in a midnight blue suit that made his silver hair gleam like polished frost. He wasn't frail. He wasn't weak. He wasn't anything like what they whispered. He was simply older, yes, but with that age came a depth I had come to love. He looked at me the way someone looks at a long-awaited sunrise, and in that moment, all the fear tugging at my soul softened just enough for my feet to move forward. My steps were steady, but inside, every insecurity screamed. Could people hear what my son said? Could they tell I was shaking? Did they see the doubt in my eyes, the guilt, the anger? And yet Daniel's eyes never left me, not for a second. When I reached him, he extended his hand, warm, steady, grounding. "You look beautiful," he whispered. And I tried to smile. But in his eyes, I saw the flicker of concern. He sensed something. He always did. His fingertips brushed mine gently, silently asking if I was okay. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure it was true. The ceremony began. The pastor's voice echoed across the church, but beneath it all, something else stirred. A faint rumble of whispers. I saw my son lean toward his wife again. Her lips curled into a smirk. She covered it with her hand, but I saw it. I felt it. My cheeks warmed with shame. Every vow Daniel spoke, every word of devotion, was shadowed by the weight of their mockery. Still, Daniel's voice was calm and sincere. "You gave me a reason to wake up with purpose," he said. "You reminded me that life still had color." His words struck straight through me. I blinked fast, fighting the tears rising in my chest. How could they not see the man he was? But before the ceremony ended, something shifted. A murmur swept through the guests, quiet at first, then growing. Heads turned. People whispered, confusion spreading like ripples on water. And then I saw what they were reacting to. My son stood up. His face was flushed, his jaw tight, and for a moment I hoped, that maybe he would apologize, maybe he would say something kind, something redeeming. But he didn't. "Can we stop pretending?" he said loudly, cutting through the pastor's words. The air froze. Guests gasped. I felt the blood drain from my face. My son's wife rose beside him, arms folded triumphantly. "This is ridiculous," she added. "Look at him. He's old enough to be her father." The church erupted in shocked whispers. Daniel didn't move. He didn't look away from me. But I felt the tremor in his hand. My son continued, emboldened by the crowd's shock. "You barely know this man. And we're supposed to believe he's good for you? What is he even here for? Your money. Your house. What's the point of all this?" The pastor tried to intervene, but my son waved him off. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. My humiliation felt endless, swallowing every bit of happiness the morning had brought. I opened my mouth to speak, but my throat closed. My son had never spoken to me like this, not even during teenage rebellion. Daniel gently squeezed my hand before stepping forward. For a moment, he appeared vulnerable under the weight of the judgment thrown at him. But then something incredible happened. His posture straightened. His shoulders lifted. His expression sharpened, not with anger, but with a quiet, commanding confidence I had rarely seen. The guests fell silent, as if sensing an invisible shift. And Daniel turned toward my son, not with fury, but with an authority that seemed to fill the room. "You think you know who I am," he said softly. "But before you decide what your mother deserves, perhaps you should know the truth about me." Whispers spread like wildfire. My son frowned. "What truth?" Daniel lifted his chin slightly. His eyes, once soft, held something deeper, heavier. Something he had never told me. Not fully. And right then, in front of everyone, he opened his mouth to reveal a secret he had sworn for years to keep hidden. But before a single word left his lips, the church doors burst open behind us. Everyone turned. A figure stepped inside. Gasps filled the room, and I felt my heart stop completely. The figure stood in the doorway, framed by the afternoon light pouring into the church. At first, their silhouette was only a dark shape against the glow, unclear, almost ghost-like. People leaned forward in their seats. My breath froze as the doors slowly drifted shut behind them, sealing the sudden tension into the room. Then the figure stepped forward. A tall man in a black suit, crisp, immaculate, with a presence so commanding that the entire church fell silent without anyone asking it to. His hair was slicked back, silver at the temples, but not with age, more like the polished sheen of someone who had lived through too much. His eyes moved through the room as if he recognized every soul there, pausing just long enough to make each person shift uncomfortably. When his gaze finally met Daniel's, something electric flashed between them. Daniel's hand tightened around mine. My son and his wife, once smug and triumphant, now appeared confused. My son's brows drew together. "Who is that?" Daniel swallowed hard, but didn't answer. He looked, not afraid, but wary, as if this moment was something he had anticipated, dreaded, and hoped would never happen. The man in the black suit walked toward the altar with slow, measured steps. Each one echoed softly across the polished floor. No one dared speak. No one dared move. I felt the world narrow to the sound of his shoes against the marble and the strange storm gathering in Daniel's eyes. When he reached the front, he stopped only a few feet away from us. "Daniel," he said in a steady, low voice, "you weren't going to tell her, were you?" The words hit me like a cold wave. "Tell me what?" I looked at Daniel, searching his face for answers, but he kept his eyes fixed on the stranger. "Not here," Daniel whispered. His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it, laced with something I couldn't place, regret and fear. The stranger tilted his head slightly, a humorless smile touching his lips. Not here. You think you get to choose the place now? My heart pounded. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, glancing at one another, whispering without sound. My son crossed his arms, impatient and annoyed. Can someone explain what's going on? Still, no one answered him. The stranger's eyes flicked to me for the first time. It wasn't unkind, but it was sharp enough to make my breath tremble. You deserve to know, he said. Especially today. Don't, Daniel murmured under his breath. The stranger ignored him. Daniel here hasn't been completely honest about who he is, the man continued, his voice carrying through the church as effortlessly as if he were born to command rooms. And I thought, since the whole family is present, this might be the right moment. My stomach churned. I felt my pulse racing in my ears. Daniel stepped slightly in front of me, protective. She doesn't need to be involved in this. Not now. The man let out a soft laugh, cold and knowing. You think she isn't involved already? She married you. A ripple went through the guests. Married. Present tense. As if the ceremony had already ended. As if the vows were already binding. My son took a step forward. Mom, who is this man? Why is he talking like he knows you? He doesn't know her, Daniel snapped, sharper than I had ever heard from him. This is between him and me. And the department, the stranger added casually. A murmur swept through the church. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, Department of what? But I knew. The department. There was only one department people spoke of like that. One that didn't need a full name because its shadow spoke for itself. FBI, CIA, Homeland Security. Agencies that lived in the quiet corners of America's secrets. Daniel closed his eyes briefly, as if bracing for impact. The stranger sighed. You were always the stubborn one. Fine. I'll do this your way, slowly. Then he turned toward the guests, toward my son, toward me. For the last decade, he said, Daniel has lived under a protected identity. Gasps erupted. My knees weakened. I felt Daniel grip my arm to steady me. No, not him. Not the man who spent quiet mornings making me breakfast, who brought me fresh flowers every Sunday, who kissed me gently like the world was a fragile thing. A protected identity. A man hunted. A man hiding. My son shot me a wide-eyed stare. Protected identity? Mom, what does that mean? The stranger continued. He was involved in something years ago. Something dangerous. Something that could cost people their lives even now. Enough, Daniel said sharply. But the man didn't stop. He testified against some very powerful people, he said. And he paid the price for it. Daniel exhaled shakily. You don't know the whole story. Oh, I know enough, the stranger replied. Enough to know that the men you helped put away aren't done looking for you. And you standing in a church full of people, he glanced around meaningfully. Not a smart move. Fear stabbed through my chest. My son took a step back. His wife grabbed his arm. Panic flickered across their faces now. Real, unmasked fear. Daniel's posture changed. The vulnerability slipped away, replaced by a calm, strategic awareness I had never seen in him. His voice dropped low. Why are you here? Because, the man said, they've found you. A hush fell so thick it was suffocating. My breath caught. A shiver ran down my spine. Found him. Here. Now. The stranger stepped closer to Daniel until they were face to face. I tried to warn you earlier. You didn't pick up. And then I tracked your location and saw this. His eyes moved around the church. A wedding. Really, Daniel? I felt dizzy. My fingers trembled in Daniel's grasp. My son whispered, "Mom, what did you get yourself into?" But I couldn't answer him. I was too busy staring at Daniel, searching his face for reassurance, for explanation, for anything. Daniel finally faced me, his expression thick with emotion, apology, regret, fear, and something else I couldn't read. "I was going to tell you," he whispered. "After the ceremony. I just wanted one moment of happiness before." Before what? Before danger swallowed us? Before the past caught him? Before the life he'd built unraveled? The stranger suddenly stiffened, his hand moving to his ear as if listening to something only he could hear. His eyes widened. "They're close," he said quietly. "Closer than I thought." Daniel froze. My heart nearly stopped. And before any of us could move, the sound of engines growled from outside the church. Several. Loud. Fast. Coming to a halt. Doors slammed. Heavy footsteps thundered toward the entrance. The stranger's eyes snapped to Daniel's. "They're here." The moment the stranger uttered those words, the world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. There was a heavy, breathless silence inside the church, one that felt too thick, too tight, as though the air itself understood the danger approaching. My pulse hammered painfully in my ears as the footsteps outside grew louder, more determined. The guests clutched their seats, some covering their mouths, others frozen in fear. My son reached instinctively for his wife's hand, his earlier arrogance replaced entirely by terror. Daniel stepped in front of me without thinking, shielding me with his body. It was a quiet, instinctual gesture, but it sent a tremor through my chest. He wasn't just protecting me now. He had been protecting me all along, even when I didn't know why. The church doors flew open with a violent force that echoed like thunder, slamming against the walls. Dark figures swept inside. Men dressed head to toe in black, their movements sharp, trained, lethal. They spread out in formation, scanning the room with practiced precision. The stranger stepped forward immediately, his voice rising like a crack of authority. "Federal agents. Everyone stay where you are." The men stopped instantly. Gasps went through the audience like a wave of released breath. The leader of the squad, a tall agent with a stern jaw and urgent eyes, approached the stranger. "Sir, we tracked multiple threats heading this direction. We intercepted one vehicle, but two escaped. They're planning to breach." My son whispered, trembling, "Mom, what is happening?" I couldn't speak. My eyes were locked on Daniel. His face was pale, but there was a steady fire burning in his gaze. A man ready to confront what he'd been running from for years. The agent turned to him. "Sir, we need to move you. Now." Daniel didn't answer right away. His eyes remained on me, anchored, conflicted, and unbearably tender. I reached for his hand before they could pull him away. "Tell me the truth. All of it. Please." He swallowed hard, emotion tightening his voice. "I testified against the men who ran a corrupt government contractor. They were dangerous, ruthless, untouchable until I spoke. They vowed revenge. I didn't run because I'm afraid of them. I ran because I didn't want anyone I loved to become collateral damage." A tear slipped down my cheek. "You should have told me," I whispered. "I wanted you to live freely," he said. "Not in fear." The stranger placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "We don't have time." The church suddenly shook with a sharp blast, distant, but close enough to rattle the stained glass windows. Guests screamed. The agents took defensive positions near the doors. The stranger shouted, "They're trying to blow their way in. Move him." Daniel looked at me once more, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I could outrun my past long enough to start a new life with you. I never wanted this day to be stained. I stepped closer, refusing to let fear swallow me whole. If today is stained, I whispered, it's only because you tried to carry all of this alone. His breath caught. My son suddenly stepped forward, surprising us all. His earlier arrogance had vanished. In its place was a shaky, remorseful determination. Take me with you, he said. If they're after him, they're after us too. And Mom is safer with agents around. I won't leave her. My son's wife nodded, squeezing his arm. Daniel blinked, a silent forgiveness in his eyes. Another explosion thundered outside, closer this time. Dust rained from the church ceiling. The lead agent barked orders. All units, secure evac route. Move out. The stranger grabbed Daniel's arm, but Daniel resisted for a moment, just long enough to pull me into his embrace. His heartbeat thudded rapidly against mine. If I lose you today, he whispered, voice breaking, I don't survive it. I cupped his face, my tears wetting his skin. Then don't lose me. The stranger cursed under his breath. Daniel, now. Daniel kissed my forehead, soft, trembling, desperate, before the agents rushed him toward the side exit. My legs moved automatically as two other agents urged me along with my son and daughter-in-law. The chaos inside the church grew louder, shouts, footsteps, alarms from agent radios. We pushed through the hallway toward the emergency exit. The air smelled of dust and smoke, the lingering echo of the explosions outside. Just as we reached the door, a deafening crash shook the corridor. The lights flickered violently. The agents tensed, weapons raised. A shadowy figure appeared at the far end of the hallway, stepping slowly into view. My breath froze. The man was large, broad-shouldered, dressed in black combat gear, with a scar slicing across his cheek. His expression was twisted with fury, his eyes locked directly onto Daniel. It took me years to find you, he said, voice rasping. And today, of all days, you handed yourself to me. The agents shouted commands, but the man didn't flinch. Instead, he lifted a detonator device in his hand. My blood turned ice. Daniel stepped forward instinctively, as if placing himself between the threat and me, even now. No, Daniel, I cried, reaching for him. But the corridor erupted into chaos. Agents lunged forward. The stranger tackled Daniel out of the way. The scarred man pressed the detonator, and a deafening explosion swallowed the world in blinding light. Smoke, heat, screams. The ground buckled beneath us. I felt myself lifted, thrown, crashing into something hard. The world spun violently, my ears ringing so loudly I couldn't hear my own cries. When I opened my eyes, the hallway was filled with dust and shadows, flickering emergency lights painting the wreckage in red. Agents stumbled through debris. My son dragged his wife to her feet. But Daniel was nowhere in sight. I pushed myself up, coughing, searching desperately through the haze. Then I saw it. A shattered portion of the wall, a gaping hole where the blast had hit hardest. And near the edge, a single footprint in the dust, leading outward into the night. Not the boot print of an agent. Daniel's. He had survived. But he was gone. Vanished into the darkness. And with him, the truth of what happened in those explosive seconds. The truth of whether he was taken, whether he fled to protect us, or whether the scarred man dragged him into the night to finish what he started.